Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Thursday weekly OCI Deep Dive. For those of you who might be new to our events, we're hosted on Cloud Customer Connect, which is our Oracle community forum for end users. I'll drop some links in the chat throughout the presentation today that lead you back to those CCC forums. We invite you to join in discussions and look for upcoming events and all kinds of topics. I'm Kenna Kettrick. I'm a program manager with the OCI go-to-market team, and today I'm joined by Karan, Vohra, senior software development manager, and Srujan, Jonnadula, software development manager here at OCI. They'll be introducing you to and demoing our new OCI Bastion service today. Before I hand things over to them, I do have one quick poll that I'm going to go ahead and launch now. If you've been with us before, this will be familiar to you. We build these sessions, both our Thursday weekly deep dives and our fundamental series, with you, our users, in mind. We would like to know what you're interested in so that we can know what to build in the future. Speaking of which, we do have one next week, which is Somnath Lahiri is going to be joining us to talk about how to build event-driven architecture using Kafka-compatible Oracle streaming service. I will drop a link in the chat to that if anyone is interested in joining us. It would be great to see you there. And I'm also going to drop a link to a survey we're running with our customers. We really appreciate any feedback and opinions you have to share with us. If you want to take 1 or 2 minutes of your time at any point today, we'd like to hear your thoughts. All right, our usual reminders, if you have any questions throughout the presentation today, please drop them in the Q&A box. We'll have time at the end to go over those questions and some live Q&A at the end as well. And we're also recording, so if you have folks you think might be interested in this, there will be replays that I'll post the links to, and you can share this far and wide after today. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Karan, and as I do, I'm going to launch 2 more polls up there. Just some quick questions about what you might already be using. So go ahead and take a look at those, answer that, and then Karan, take it away.
Thank you so much, Kenna, for that lovely introduction. Thank you, folks, for attending this particular session. So in this session, we're going to present you the OCI Bastion service. It's a newly launched service. We launched it in end of May this year. And with this service, we are providing restricted and ephemeral access to any private target resource within OCI. So what is the business problem that we are trying to solve? So as of today, our customers have a couple of choices for enabling the operator access to the private target resources. A private target resource can be anything. It can be a Linux compute instance. It can be a Windows compute instance. It can be a Kubernetes cluster. It can be any database solution like MySQL DB or Autonomous Database, which are present on a private subnet, right? So, so today, if our customers have to enable the operator access to those resources, the choices are they either have to expose those resources on public internet with public IPs. Clearly, it's a bad choice, right? With respect to security and compliance. So definitely the customer should not do that. The other thing is, the other option that they have is that they put that target resource in a private subnet and implement the, accessing networking patterns like public-private subnet or VCN peering. Now, the public-private subnet architecture is that you keep your target resource in a private subnet and you launch a compute host acting as a jump box in the public subnet. And VCN peering is another pattern where you keep your target resources in a separate VCN and private subnet, and then you launch a compute host which acts as a jump box or a bastion host in a different VCN and a public subnet. And the 2 VCNs, they interact with each other using the local peering gateway, right? So just to give you an illustration, right, of how some of the customers are doing it today. So let's say this is your target database, right? It's on a private subnet within your VCN. So today, the security administrators launch a compute instance that acts as a jump box on a public subnet. They configure that jump box to harden it with respect to security and compliance standards. They also install all the tools, like let's say MySQL client tools to access this MySQL database. And then from the operators, the security admins collect their public key and they put it manually on this jump box so that the operators can use their private keys to jump through the jump box use the client tools of the database and access the database, right? So as you can see, there are some basic problems with these patterns, right? The connection to the private resources is always persistent, right? Which increases the overall security risk. There is no centralized IAM control on like which user can access the private target resource via the jump box. There is no auditability, right? So you don't know who and who accessed which target resource and when did they access it. Of course, the operational overhead of maintaining this jump box, do patching, hardening it, and maintaining high availability is on the customer. So these networking architectures work for, at a full scale, at a very small scale, it'll work. But as your organization scale up and as your number of VCNs and your networking architectures become more complex, these solutions become unmaintainable, right? And of course, there is a cost associated with running a jump box 24/7, right? So there are certain issues. Although these patterns work to a certain extent, but these are some of the issues that our customers have to face today. So, and also like thinking about the worst case scenario, if the customers start depending third-party services, like some SaaS solutions or like solutions like CyberArk and others, the problem is like it creates an operational nightmare, right? So let's say one fine day when a customer is unable to access the private target resource, they have to deal with, customer supports of different organizations, right? Because at that point of time, the issue can be in the third-party service, it can be in the target resource, it can be networking between OCI and the third-party service, or it can be something wrong with OCI itself, right? So what happens is in such an operational issue is that the customer is totally frustrated. And of course, at the end of the day, because the resources are within OCI and ultimately customer was just trying to access those resources, OCI ultimately loses credibility. So that's where we come into the picture and we come to the rescue. So with the OCI Bastion service, the customers can access the private target resources in a secure and a time-bound manner. You don't have to worry about persistent connections and your overall security posture improves. The service is completely integrated with IAM. So only the customers with the right IAM policies can access the private target resources using the Bastion service. Of course, using this service, customers can restrict the incoming SSH connections to certain IPv4 address ranges. For example, let's say in your organization, you already know that there are certain IPv4 ranges from where your operators access the private target resources. You can basically restrict the incoming SSH connections to those ranges. You can also figure out who and when created or deleted or updated or even fetch the details of Bastion and session, because all of those administrative actions are recorded in OCI event and audit service. The service itself is free, and that also helps the customer in saving a lot of cost. The underlying fleet is fully managed by us. We patch, we harden, and we maintain the underlying fleet, which reduces the overall operational overhead of the customers. And of course, the biggest advantage that the customers will get is that your networking architecture will become simplified, right? And it doesn't matter how much the organization or the architecture is scaling up. Using Bastions, the simplification will still remain while you have a greater security posture. So we support plenty of use cases. We have made our service in a way that we cover a breadth of cases. So you can use the OCI Bastion service to access compute instances, either Linux or Windows. You can use this to access cloud database services like Autonomous Transaction Processing Database, Autonomous Data Warehouse, MySQL, DBAS, DBCS. XRCS. You can also use it to access OKE nodes, and you can also use it to manage OKE clusters. OCI Bastion can be used to access any target resource within a maximum security zone. You can access any SSHable private IPv4 within OCI using this service. And of course, we support SOX proxy scenarios via dynamic port forwarding. And the basic takeaway that you have to, if you have to remember anything from this presentation is that our service is built on top of OpenSSH or SSH. Anything that works over SSH can work via OCI Bastion service. So if RDP over SSH is possible, we support it. And that's how you can get into your Windows machines. If tunneling through SSH can happen to access databases, that is supported through the OCI Bastion service. So with that, I will hand it over to Srujan, who will give you an end-to-end demo of how you can use this service to access your Linux instances. Srujan, please take it over.
Thanks, Karan. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay, cool. Yeah, so thanks everyone. So what I'll be doing today is giving you guys a quick demo of how to provision a port forwarding session type, which, as Karan alluded to, is something you can use to kind of fulfill all of your *** over SSH scenarios like RDPs over SSH, etc. I'll also be going through and demonstrating a scenario of creating a managed SSH session type. This is where you can go through and provision an SSH connection, where it'll go through and basically take your SSH public key and post it on the Bastion host, as well as the target compute instance as well. So this is kind of our fully managed provisioning of a SSH connection. So before I do that, I already have a Bastion created here, but I just want to kind of click on this button to show you guys real quick kind of what are the various things you can set up as part of the creation of the Bastion itself. So you can specify a name. One of the things that you'll have to specify is the target VCN that you want to connect this Bastion against. And this is where the Bastion will actually, as part of its workflow for creating this abstracted Bastion, it'll actually provision a private endpoint reverse connection peeking into that VCN to actually set up that kind of networking connection in. And as Karan was kind of alluding to, you can specify the site ranges for your organization here, which will basically do the actual restricting of the data plane access into this Bastion itself. If you click under advanced options, you can go through and do some other things. One thing to note is that all these sessions that get created within this Bastion are ephemeral, but you can specify kind of a maximum session time to live for each of these sessions that get provisioned. Okay, so let me go over to this Bastion that I've already created. The first thing I'll do is I'll go through and I'll create a port forwarding type. And you can specify either IP address or instance name. I'll just choose instance name. And then let me go through and so what I'm doing here is just getting a copy of the public half of the SSH key I'll be using to make this connection. So I will create this connection, and this just takes a few seconds. Basically, what this port forwarding type is doing is it's actually setting up a SSH tunnel to the end instance itself, and basically setting up that connection to that target port. In this case, I'm just setting up a tunnel to 22. So what I'll be doing is just setting up the SSH tunnel and then just doing SSH onto the actual end host itself, which already has the same public key. Now, for RDP over SSH or kind of other scenarios, that's where you can have a bit more flexibility about what is the target port you want to specify, which will basically allow that SSH tunnel established, and then you can go through and kind of fulfill other access scenarios on top of that. So, okay, we have this active. Let's go through and view this connection. So I just go through and copy this, paste this. And here, all I'm specifying is kind of two pieces of information. One is first pointing to the local port that I want this tunnel to be set up against. 1500, and then I will be specifying the path to my private half of the SSH key. And just another thing that I do, and this is just kind of a good indicator, is I just specify just verbose at the end, just to look for a very specific signature that comes back that just indicates to me that the tunnel was set up successfully. So when I go through and I do this, at the bottom, when you see that pledge network, that's an indicator that, sorry, let's see, okay, yeah. So then once I have that, now that I know that the tunnel is set up, all I do is just in a separate terminal, just do an SSH where I point to the same. So the thing to note here is I'm pointing to the private half of the SSH key that I know I used when I provisioned this instance, as well as kind of the full specification to localhost, so OPC at localhost. The important thing I point here is I make sure that I'm pointing to localhost at 9500, which is what I'm mapping my SSH tunnel above. So once I go through and do this, I'm in. And now this is basically an SSH connection to a target instance via a port forwarded session type that I've created above. Okay. So let me do this. Let me kill this tunnel. Let me go through here. Let me close this. And now let me go through and create a managed session type. So here, similar to kind of where I specified port forwarding, I just go and switch to managed. I want to ensure that I specify username. Now, one thing to note here is our service doesn't go through and create usernames on target instances. So one thing you want to be careful about is you want to make sure that you're specifying a username that you know already exists on the target instance that you're going towards, and has like, is not only just specified, but has kind of the home directory and everything set up such that they have the authorized keys files to be able to set up the SSH public key on. And similar to here, so I just go through and specify the instance I want to go to. So I do another copy again, paste it there, session. Okay, so now this one takes a little bit longer because unlike the tunneling type, this is actually going through and not only setting up the public key within the Bastion host, but also via talking to a plugin that we have that ships as part of the Oracle Cloud Agent within the target instance itself. So it's kind of two data plane calls that are happening. So one to the agent that's running on the Bastion host, and an agent that's running on the end host itself. A few common scenarios that we've seen here is, to ensure that connection to the end host is successful, we advise customers to ensure that they have a service gateway in place and kind of all those connections in place, because that cloud agent needs to be able to talk to their control plane and data plane endpoint so they can facilitate this full connection. Okay, so we have this now active. Let's go and view this SSH command. So you'll notice that this is basically a jump command that's being specified here. So, and I'm in. So basically what I've gone through and done is set up a full managed SSH connection here, right? So this is not a port forwarding or tunnel that's set up. This is explicitly a means to just do the SSH connection itself. And the ephemerality of this, so basically here, when this session gets created, the public key that was provided gets placed within the Bastion host as well as within the target end host. And when this session gets deleted, the two agent components also ensure that the public key that's been placed to facilitate the session also get removed. So this ephemerality of the session is enforced not only just at the Bastion level, but at the target instance as well too. And in a similar fashion for the port forwarding session, since it's only doing that placement of the public key within the Bastion host, that ephemerality gets enforced at that level. So yeah, with that, I'll give it back to you, Karan.
Cool. Thank you so much. Cool. Thank you. So I hope you guys liked the demo. So in the demo, we basically showcased that how to use the Bastion service to access your Linux instances via two modes. One is the managed SS session, and the second mode is the port forwarding session, right? Both of these session types have their own unique scenarios. The bottom line that I think you guys should remember is that if you are using an OCI native image Linux instance, which has the Oracle Cloud Agent installed in it, and if your scenario is that you want the public key, the public SH key to be transferred over to not only the Bastion service, but also to the target compute host, then you use the manage SS session, right? But let's say if you want to connect to a database, right? Or let's say you want to just do RDP over SSH. In those solutions, like for example, if you use MySQL database service, right, as your target resource. Now the MySQL database service does not have this Oracle Cloud Agent running on it, right? So in that case, the option that you have to use in that case is the port forwarding session, right? So that you establish a tunnel till the bastions, and then because the bastions have the network connectivity to reach out to the target database source. When you hit the target database source, the original authentication mechanism of the database will kick in, and from there you can log in. So depending upon the scenarios that you have, you can use the service. Again, the advantages that you get with the service is that only the customers with the right IAM policies can only create the bastion, can manage the bastion, can only create the session and manage the session, right? People who don't have the right IAM policies will not be able to use the service, right? So you can create the correct IAM groups and IAM policies to control that access. Whoever created the bastion, whoever created a session, all of those events are properly audited and logged, so that you as a security administrator has a complete view of who did what, who got into which machine and when. And the last and most important thing that you get with this is that all of these sessions are ephemeral in nature. So the security posture of your complete architecture and your mission critical apps which are running in your target resources increases dramatically. Cool. So these are some of the reference materials that we have, which are all available on the internet. We will strongly encourage you to go through them. And it covers a wide variety of topics of how to use the service with respect to different resources. I would just like to cover like a couple of minutes on the maximum security zones experience. Now, before this service was launched, if you have used maximum security zones before, the way to use it was like this, right? So your resources were present in the MSZ compartment, and they were in a VCN within the MSZ. Now, to access these resources, you had to create a DMZ VCN, you had to create a subnet, you had to launch a jump box, you had to maintain and harden that jump box. There were no IAM controls, and of course, the connections were persistent. But now with Bastions, you can just launch a maximum security zone compartment, put your target resources in the VCN within that compartment, and not invest in anything more than that with respect to your networking architecture, right? Just use the Bastion service, which has the IAM controls, which has the IPv4 filtering, which is free of cost, which is a fully managed service, to access your private target resources within MSZ directly, right? So Bastions become like that last mile delivery mechanism or the access mechanism for your operators to access the resources within MSZ. Of course, as I said, definitely the service is generic enough to work with different kind of networking architectures. So if, let's say, in the demo that Srujan showed, when you create the Bastion service, you choose a VCN and a subnet. That target subnet can either be the subnet where your resources exist, like in the first diagram, or you can point it to a dedicated subnet within the VCN from where the resource subnet allows the traffic to flow in. So depending upon your networking choices, the service is flexible enough to support either of them. So with that, we hope that you got some basic understanding of what this service is, what are the basic use cases of the service, what are the problems this service is solving. And we hope that with the demo that Srujan showcased, you definitely, it has happened. It is a kind of an icebreaker session for you guys. So from here on, like how to contact us, like please try out the service and please use the following channels to give us feedback, ask questions or cite concerns. The external customers can reach out to us on our email, which is team_OCI_Bastions_US_grp@oracle.com. If you're an internal OCI Oracle customer and employee, you can reach us on the Slack channel, which is OCI_Bastions_users. We are looking forward to your feedback, concerns, what are things that we should put on roadmap, etc. With this, thank you so much. Kenna, before we end the session, I believe that you have to do another set of polling. Can you take over?
Yeah, so I'm just going to launch our final polls here, and then we do have time for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions at this point, feel free to drop those in the Q&A box and we can answer those. If you don't and you find you have questions later, there are links to the forums in the chat, so you can go and have discussions there, and then also follow those 2 channels that Karan posted. Reach out, give feedback, ask questions, try the service, see how it works for you. Otherwise, if there are no questions, then I would like to thank Karan and Srujan very, very much for joining us today, giving us a little introduction and a demo to Bastion. And we will see all of you next time. Thanks so much, folks.